Press record. So thank you for
Lovely.
joining us. This is our penultimate webinar all about accessibility in hypnobirthing. And I can't wait to listen to what Liz is going to share with us, but also have a discussion kind of collaboratively as well about our thoughts on this. Perhaps you've done hypnobirthing or you work as a hypnobirther or you've a hypnobirthing practitioner, or you've got some thoughts on what Liz is about to share. So as before, please feel free to put things in the chat box as we go along, and I will keep an eye on that. And at the end of Liz's session, we'll also have time for a bit of a Q&A discussion as well. But without further ado, Liz, I'll let you do your introduction.
Yeah,
Liz and I have worked together for a while, so I'm very happy to be here with you, spending my lunchtime with you, and yeah, looking forward to hearing what you've got to share with us. Thank you, Liz.
great. Well, what's funny, first off, is I joined early to test the tech and to make sure that my presentation was working, but we didn't talk about anything in relation to that at all, did we, Victoria? So, like, fingers crossed that this is actually going to go to plan right now. Bear with me just a second. Presenting full screen there.
I can see your Canvas screen. Oh, there we go. Now we're full screen. Yeah, great.
Are
Thank
we
you.
full screen?
We're
Oh,
full screen.
good. Great. Brilliant. It's working. Okay, thank you so much for having me, Victoria. I'm so delighted to be able to deliver this workshop today, and to talk to you all about accessibility to hypnobirthing for neurodivergent parents. So I'm going to introduce myself first. So this is me, Liz Stanford, and I own the Calm Birth School, which is a brand and method of hypnobirthing. I have owned the Calm Birth School now for about 7 years. It did have a previous owner, but I've been sort of in the birth world for over a decade. So the main thing I do at the Converse School is teach people how to, I train people to teach hypnobirthing with my level 3 hypnobirthing instructor training diploma. And I'm also co-author of a book called The Calm Birth Method, which I co-authored with Susie Ashworth, and that's published by Hay House. So a little bit more about me. I'm not going to go on my life story, but just so you know how much hypnobirthing has impacted my life and why I'm so passionate about it and why I want it to be accessible for everybody. So hypnobirthing began for me way back 18 years ago. I am that old. When I was pregnant with my daughter. So you can see me here with one of my friends. We're at hen do. I am wearing devil ears. I don't go around wearing that just day to day. It was an actual hen do. And what I love about this photo is the little timestamp in the corner there, because it was an actual photo. So that's how I found hypnobirthing as a terrified, pregnant 20-something-year-old, not knowing what on earth lay ahead of me, and kind of burying my head in the sand until I found hypnobirthing. And I thought, this is amazing. I need to do this. And I did. And then along the way, I trained to become a hypnobirthing instructor. And this is me after having taught my first group. And I'm still in touch with those lovely parents now. Look at their beautiful babies who are, oh my goodness, so much older than that now, teenagers, I would imagine. And this is where I am today, looking rather happy with myself there, running the Calm Birth School, having become an author, training people to teach hypnobirthing, to pass this amazing transformative way of preparing for birth, and you can even use it for parenting and life in general. And I'm so grateful that I am here. So that is me. But why is accessibility important to me? Well, this is something that really does run through the Calm Birth School. I believe that hypnobirthing should be available for everybody. I know sometimes it can come across as perhaps something that is only for certain types of people or certain types of birth experiences, and I just don't believe that it should be that way. There are so many things that we can do to make hypnobirthing accessible, no matter what your race, your religion, your ethnic background, whether you're neurodivergent or not, what your cultural background is, also what your previous birth experience is, or what your mental health is like as well. There are lots of ways to make hypnobirthing work for the individual and support the individual on in their birth preparation, mainly because it's just such a great way of regulating your nervous system and developing and building that sense of safety in your birth preparation, in your birth experience, and on into parenthood as well. It can also help with things like reducing sensory overwhelm as well. So it's something that shouldn't be missed. Everybody should be able to access it and enjoy it. So in this workshop today, we're going to talk about what hypnobirthing really is. We're going to address some of the common myths and barriers, of which there are many, but I have just picked a few. And we're going to talk about how it can be adapted for neurodivergent needs as well. And full disclaimer, I'm not an expert on neurodivergent needs, but I do have a very keen interest in making hypnobirthing as accessible as possible. And Victoria and I have worked together on another project related to hypnobirthing and neurodivergent parents. And of course, I've done Victoria's training for birth professionals. So I do have a very keen interest and obviously some knowledge in this area, but I would support and love anybody to share their thoughts and ideas about what we're going to be talking about today. And then I'm going to tell you also where you can learn more about hypnobirthing, and where you can learn more about me if you choose to. So, what is hypnobirthing? Well, here's a little definition for you. So, hypnobirthing is a childbirth preparation method that expectant parents can use to create a calm, confident, and empowering experience. That sounds great, doesn't it? Like, who wouldn't want a calm, confident, empowering birth experience? But I guess that little paragraph doesn't really tell you what hypnobirthing is. And without giving you a massive history lesson, because I don't want you to nod off over your lunch if that's what you're doing in the background, but just so you have a little bit of an idea, hypnobirthing has been around since about the 1980s. It was originally created by a woman called Marie Mongan over in the US. And I'm a firm believer in acknowledging the roots of hypnobirthing and trying to maintain its integrity and what it was designed for. That doesn't mean that hypnobirthing can't evolve, and thank goodness that it has. But Marie took her inspiration from methods like the Bradley method and Lamar's, which are very popular over in the US and still are popular today. She also used her knowledge as a hypnotherapist, which she did her training after she had her amazing birth experiences. And due to all of those things and those experiences and her knowledge around Dr. Grantley Dick Reed, who coined the fear, tension, pain syndrome, she created the very first version of hypnobirthing. And Marie's no longer with us, but she is the godmother of hypnobirthing. And I always think we should don our hats to her for sure. So hypnobirthing originally, it did sort of perpetuate this kind of image that hypnobirthing was for a certain type of person in a certain type of birth. But because hypnobirthing has evolved and we have lots of different methods and training schools and video programs and books and all sorts of ways of accessing hypnobirthing and learning about it and understanding it more now, it has evolved to become more accessible and relatable to lots of different types of people all across the world. But there is definitely still room to go. There's definitely things that we need to do in order to ensure that everybody can access hypnobirthing and use it in their own ways. So it's not just for drug-free vaginal home birth, water births. I mean, that's amazing. You can use it for that, but it's not just for that. It can be used, hypnobirthing can be used for births in hospitals and with a epidural or any other form of drugs. It can be used with an induction or a cesarean birth or any kind of intervention. The way that we view it at the Calm Birth School is that hypnobirthing isn't a type of birth experience. It's not a benchmark. Like, we're not trying to create something specific with it, other than creating an as calm, confident, and empowered, positive birth experience as possible, which can take form and shape in so many different ways. But sometimes people do see it as being a little bit woo-woo, a little bit hippie. Maybe people might feel like it's a bit far-fetched or out of their reach, or just not something that they would do or that would suit them. So hopefully today we might be able to break through those barriers if you feel that way, and support you to see hypnobirthing in a different way. So there are six pillars of hypnobirthing. I could be here all day just talking about these six pillars of hypnobirthing. I'm not going to. I'm going to be really, really, I'm going to control myself. But I am going to tell you what they are, or as we see them at the Calm Birth School, and give you a little bit of information about them. So the first pillar is education. So this is birth education. Um, on a hypnobirthing course, you will learn all about how your body works, the different phases or stages of labor. You'll understand how your birth companion or birth partner can support you. You'll understand, really importantly, about the birth environment and the birth choices, what options you have. You'll understand about interventions. You'll even understand things like what to pack in your bag that could help you create a positive birth environment if you are birthing in a hospital, indeed. But as I said, it does cater for all kinds of birth experiences. Oops, here we go with the technology. Here we go. Pillar two is hypnosis. So hypnosis sometimes is perhaps the element or the pillar that deters people from doing hypnobirthing or even experiencing it. And we'll talk a little bit later on about what the myths perhaps are around hypnosis and why that can be a bit of a barrier for people. But essentially, what I want you to take away from this is that hypnosis is essentially deep relaxation. And all hypnosis is self-hypnosis. And if we can use hypnosis as part of our birth preparation, then we can actually change how we feel about giving birth. And that can help us to birth in as calm and as positive way, because it will help to regulate our nervous system and help to ground us as well. So then we have breathing. So often when people say to me, what do you do? And I say, oh, I train people to teach hypnobirthing, or I teach hypnobirthing to pregnant women or birthing people. They'll say, oh yeah, is that to do with breathing, or is that all about breathing? I'm like, oh no, yes, it is related to breathing, and breathing is one of the important pillars of hypnobirthing, but it is not just breathing. I believe that when you teach hypnobirthing, you must give people the full platter, which are these six pillars of hypnobirthing, and they can decide which ones are going to work for them and be most beneficial for them. And breathing, although it's very important and it's integral, it's not the whole thing for sure. We also have affirmations. So affirmations are basically positive statements that we can say to ourselves to change our self-talk, to change how we feel about birth, or feel about whatever it is that our limiting beliefs or our fears are related to. And affirmations are also so they are designed to change the brain in relation to neuroplasticity, but they're also just a fantastic tool to make us feel grounded, make us feel safe, and to offer up a distraction as well. And then we have relaxation. And sometimes people say, why do you have a pillar of relaxation? Surely, like hypnosis, breathing, and affirmations are all relaxation. But to me, relaxation is a separate thing. We're talking and thinking about specifically grounding tools, specific relaxation exercises, and also asking people to become aware of how they actually relax in this very digital age that we're in, that we're always switched on, our brains are going a million miles an hour. So with hypnobirthing, we're kind of asking you to go back to basics, become familiar with how does your body relax and how can you teach it to relax? Because if we can build that muscle memory during our pregnancy in relation to relaxation, then we will be able to release tension and relax more easily during our labours. And then the final one there is visualization. So visualization is a powerful tool to use during our birth preparation and during our birth experiences, because we can't actually we can't practice giving birth before the actual, D-Day or B-Day, but we can imagine it, picture it, which I know for some neurodivergent people that might not be as easy as I'm making it sound. So we will talk about that a little bit later on. Visualization has a lot of other benefits as well. So those are our 6 pillars. I hope I didn't go on too much about them. I was trying to be very strict. And now on to some myth busting. So, as I said earlier, I think sometimes hypnobirthing, because of its origin, I guess, can sometimes be thought of as a bit woo-woo and hippy-dippy or for certain kinds of people. And a lot of that can be down to how it was marketed originally and how it was promoted, very much. I guess you could say that it came across as if it was for, like white, heterosexual, neurotypical people who had disposable income that they could spend on something like hypnobirthing. But I know there are many of us within the hypnobirthing world and the birth world that are trying to make sure that the barriers that there are to hypnobirthing are reduced. And so busting some myths is definitely part of that, or some misconceptions. So the first myth that I hear, oh my goodness, I hear so many myths around the hypnosis part of hypnobirthing. But this one here, hypnobirthing is about being hypnotized during birth. So I'm going to be totally honest with you. Hypnosis is involved in hypnobirthing. It is the hypno part. It's the part that probably puts everybody off because it sounds I mean, how many times can I say this word, but woo-woo? It sounds maybe a little bit woo-woo or a little bit out there, but it's definitely not the only part. The amazing thing about hypnosis is if it is something that we can become comfortable with and that we can use part of our birth preparation, then it can really help to change how we feel about our birth experience. So if you imagine in your brain somewhere there is a file which has got all of your information related to birth in there, and that file is probably likely to be quite negative because of all of the things that we hear about birth, people's previous birth experiences, things we've seen on television, what we see in the media all the time as well. It really makes us doubt ourselves. It makes us feel fearful and unsure about birth. But if we can use hypnobirthing, it can be hypnosis, sorry, it can be one of those tools that can be really transformative because we can update that filing cabinet in our brains and replace it with something that feels a lot less scary and something that makes us feel more in control and more, dare I say, even excited about our birth experience. However, hypnosis does have its own sort of set of myths and misconceptions around it. It depends what era you're from, but if you were from, 1830 holiday type eras, or you maybe watched Little Britain with Matthew, no, forgotten his name, David Williams and Matt someone or other. Or maybe like the demon headmaster. I mean, I'm sure there's lots of people giving birth. I mean, I'm too old for that, but lots of people giving birth now who grew up watching the demon headmaster, who used hypnosis to control his students. I mean, these are the ideas that have been perpetuated to us about hypnosis. Even Philip Schofield did a very short-lived show, thank goodness, called You're Back in the Room, um, related to hypnosis. And it's all things like, it makes us think, oh my goodness, I don't want to do that. I don't want to run around like a chicken and look stupid. But that is all stage hypnosis. It's very different to the type of hypnosis being used during hypnobirthing, which is for a therapeutic purpose, which is to update that filing cabinet. So hypnosis is actually very similar to states you've already experienced before. So you might have experienced a trance-like state, which could be compared to a hypnotic state, and you might not even know it. So like daydreaming, for instance, driving to a super familiar location, and when you get there, you can't remember like a set of traffic lights, or did I go around the island the right way, which of course you did, but your subconscious took over, and it was perfectly safe because your conscious mind would kick in at any point that it needed to. So there's lots of different ways that we experience a trance-like state during our day-to-days. So it's nothing weird or strange, or it's not going to feel odd. We're not going to get stuck in hypnosis, which is something people worry about. We're not going to reveal our deepest, darkest secrets. I think that that's something that people really worry about. Um, it You're completely in control when you're using hypnosis. It's up to you whether you actually go into hypnosis. So you're fully in control. But when it comes to this particular myth, you can access like a trance-like hypnotic state during your birth experience. But with hypnobirthing, the idea is that the work, if you like, the work is all done before you actually go into labor, so you're updating that filing cabinet in your brain and replacing it with much more positive information about birth using hypnosis, so that when the time comes for you to go into labor, then your body is going to respond really positively. Your brain and your body are going to be working in conjunction with each other and responding positively, because the overriding information you have in your brain is, or in your subconscious, is really positive about birth. So that's how hypnosis can be used during hypnobirthing and during birth preparation. And it doesn't necessarily be something that you're not going to have somebody swinging a pendulum over you whilst you're in labor. The next myth is affirmations don't work. So I do hear this quite a lot, and it hurts because I really love affirmations. I think they're so powerful and helpful in so many ways. So I mentioned earlier that affirmations are a way of changing how we think about things. It's a way of changing your limiting beliefs and addressing your fears and having a more positive outlook. And when you feel that way, then you start to notice things in your life that confirm that. And affirmations, can do that for you. The issue is that all of the research that is done on affirmations is done on the general population. So we don't know out of that general population who is neurotypical and who is neurodivergent. So it might be that affirmations might work differently with the neurodivergent brain than it does with the neurotypical brain. But and me and Victoria were saying before the session started, there's neurodivergent people is very diverse. There are lots of different ways of experience being neurodivergent. So we can't say for sure that it does or it doesn't interact in the same way as it does with a neurotypical brain. But what we do know is that affirmations are really, really great at helping you to feel grounded, helping you to feel safe, and also helping you. They can also be a wonderful distraction as well and a focus point. So they are absolutely worth doing and investing your time on, even if we're unsure of what the research is saying when it's typically related to neurodivergent people. And then the next one is hypnobirthing, is only for calm and quiet births. And that's kind of tried to depict it here in this picture with these two very happy looking people in labor. And then also, somebody there in reality with a speakerphone. I mean, probably you're not going to have a speakerphone in reality, but I just wanted to impress upon you that uh, doing hypnobirthing does not mean that you have to behave in a certain way or that you have to be, really quiet. Obviously, we are working towards you having as calm an experience as possible, but that's going to be different for everybody, sort of levels of capability in terms of regulating their nervous systems. So it's not like, I mean, this is probably a myth in itself, but Scientology, I think we've probably all heard about silent births. It's not, we do not condone that. You can be silent if you want, if that feels good to you, but you can also be loud and you can moo, you can hum, you can shout, you can do whatever feels right to you. So yeah, don't be fooled into thinking that hypnobirthing is only for those very serene people. It's definitely not. And the final one here is hypnobirthing only works if you can visualize in images. So it's some people just can't create mental images, and that's not necessarily just related to neurodivergent people. There is a condition, I guess, which is called aphantasia, which means that you can't create those mental pictures. And from what I understand, that neurodivergent people often find visualizing challenging. It may be a bit overwhelming, or it may be, just difficult to conjure up those specific images or pictures. And so it could be one of those two reasons why visualization might be more challenging for a neurodivergent person. But it's not just about creating mental images. We can use visualization in different ways depending on what a person's sensory preferences are. So you can connect with the different senses, perhaps not all of them, because that would be overwhelming. But for instance, you might want to look at something. So rather than trying to create pictures in your mind, you might want to create a vision board, and you might have an idea of like, oh, I want to have a water birth in a birth center and have a doula and be with my partner. So you can create a vision board based on images that you find online or in magazines that relate to your own idea of what your birth experience could be like. And though that vision could be, put it in your house and could be something that you could look at all the time, that is essentially visualizing. You could, if you were more auditory, you could just write down what it is that you want for your birth experience, and you could write it down in the first person as if it has already happened, so that it's something you're kind of like reminiscing about, like writing a story, if you like. So there are different ways of using visualization other than creating those mental images. Or it might be that it's something that needs, because it's a skill, and it's something that it needs to perhaps be learned and honed. So it might just be that there could be some guidance that could help you create those images in your mind. So those are some of the myths. There are more. And really just a reminder of why accessibility matters in birth preparation. So many neurodivergent people might experience sensory differences or heightened anxiety, or communication challenges, for instance. And standard hypnobirthing courses might not address those specific issues. Um, so if you were sort of seeking out hypnobirthing as a neurodivergent person, then I would recommend seeking out somebody who is competent or has shown some interest in supporting neurodivergent people to help you make that birth preparation more, or they can make it accessible for you specifically. And there's lots of different ways that they can do that, and lots of different ways that hypnobirthing can support you to prepare. And if you are looking for an individual, you could look on my directory on my website, because some of my instructors have done Victoria's birth professional training, and I know that they would love to support neurodivergent people in hypnobirthing birth preparation. As a birth professional, then, I would recommend that you do Victoria's birth professional course if you want to be able to support neurodivergent people and have a bit more of an understanding about how hypnobirthing could support them. And Victoria and I have a introduction to hypnobirthing, which is available through ND Birth. So hypnobirthing can support sensory regulation. It can help with predictability and control through creating like preferences, for example, and creating repetition and routines. So there's a lot of repetition when it comes to hypnobirthing. But having said that, if repetition is not something that is that you like or enjoy or find easy, then you can also fit hypnobirthing into your life in lots of different ways. It's about making it work for you rather than you trying to fit in to how hypnobirthing might be offered to like everybody else. So accessibility for me is not about watering down hypnobirthing. It's really about making it fit to the individual. And just to impress upon you how hypnobirthing helps neurodivergent people, the 6 pillars of hypnobirthing are all about regulating your nervous system, supporting you to regulate your nervous system in so many different ways. So when your nervous system is regulated, then it helps you to feel safe and calmer, and just have a more positive experience for sure. So how can we make hypnobirthing more accessible for neurodivergent people? If we think about hypnosis specifically, like I said at the beginning, I'm not here to say, do this, do it this way. I'm not the expert when it comes to neurodivergent people, but I have some ideas. And, I'd love people to share their ideas as well if you feel called to do so. So with hypnosis, I think a few of the ways that we could make this more accessible is perhaps some neurodivergent people might relax more easily when they know what's coming next. So what we could do with a hypnosis script, for instance, is always follow the same pattern and, have that be known to the neurodivergent person. So, starting off with something that is perhaps grounding, doing a breathing pattern, having whatever the hypnotic focus is, or whatever the sort of change work that we want to do. There might be some hypnotic suggestions in there as well, and then kind of alerting the person into like an awake state. So knowing and understanding the process that's going to be in that script could be reassuring, and that could help to reduce anxiety, and maybe increase trust in the process as well. Something in hypnosis, we love metaphors, and I often talk in metaphors without even, without meaning to. But that could be confusing or maybe triggering for some neurodivergent people. So sometimes in scripts, it's very sort of flowery. We might say floating or sinking or melting. And that might not feel right or feel good or feel safe even. So maybe more what's the word, maybe like more conceptual ideas, like allow your body to soften, let your shoulders drop gently, let your thoughts slow down, and then having that kind of direct language, that clear language, again, can maybe create more accessibility depending on the individual's neurodivergent experience. Instead of visual image, hypnotic scripts, it might be better to use like sensory based imagery. So it might be more about, instead of, like go to your favorite place in nature, or like walk down to the beach and etc. Maybe things like notice the warmth on your hands, feel the chair beneath you, things like that. That's more it's not too imagery based, it's based on different senses. And so it doesn't need the pictures in the mind if that is a barrier. The other thing I was thinking is that sometimes with hypnosis, what we often say to people is, lie down or sit down, and um, and you're sort of expected to lie and sit still, and that might not be something that feels good or right to a neurodivergent person. So you can involve movement. So there could be rocking, which is actually, very soothing. I generally rock anyway as well. So that can be very soothing. A fidget toy could be used as well. Or a weighted blanket could be something that could be helpful and supportive as well. So there's, hopefully you're starting to see that there's lots of different ways that we could tweak hypnosis to make it accessible. However, it does depend on who the individual is working with. Hypnosis scripts are normally developed by hypnotherapists, or by the training school that a hypnobirthing instructor was trained via. So it depends on what their sort of limitations are as well. So I'm not saying it's perfect or all worked out yet. Um, and then in terms of affirmations, we have talked about this a little bit, but again, like thinking about the language being used. So instead of saying something like, I am a calm ocean of birth energy, which, some people would really love that idea and really kind of like imagine that and sink into it. It might not be great for other people. So something more like I am safe and supported. But the power of affirmations is coming up with them yourself and making them, or part of the power is making them really specific to you as an individual and to your own experiences. And as I said, although we're not sure in terms of the research with affirmations and neurodivergent people, we do know that it can be great for grounding and creating a safe ritual, creating a distraction, and just really reinforcing a person's capabilities and strengths as well. So, if you would like to know more, then you could take a look at an introduction to hypnobirthing for neurodivergent parents, which is part of a bigger package offering, I believe, via ND Birth, which Victoria could talk about more concisely than I.
It's
Um,
part of our birth prep course, the ND birth prep course. Thank you, Liz. Yeah.
that is the one. Yeah. And then if you want to connect with me, then please come and say hi over on Instagram. I am at the Calm Birth School. Or you can take a look at my website. I'm always happy to chat, especially about accessibility of hypnobirthing, or anything hypnobirthing related, in fact. And really just thank you so much for having me today. And I hope that that was helpful or useful. I hope it wasn't overwhelming because I know I gave such a lot of stuff. But please ask any questions
Thank
or
you, Liz. So,
share.
yes, please do. If you want to ask a question, you're very welcome to pop it in the chat box or to raise your hand. But I've got a few little things to say. Liz, it made me smile so much when you showed that photo of your first hypnobirthing cohort and how you're still in touch with them now. Because
Yeah.
I 9 years on from doing hypnobirthing myself spend every morning at the bus stop with my hypnobirthing instructor at the school bus stop. And I'm often late for whatever I'm supposed to be doing next because, yeah, we can't stop talking. So I think
Oh,
if you get a one-to-one hypnobirthing or an in-person hypnobirthing instructor, be prepared to have them for life.
yeah, yeah, definitely,
Um,
definitely.
but I really love this was really important for me in Neurodivergent Birth Awareness Week as well, because I see so much the benefit of hypnobirthing to neurodivergent people as they prepare for birth because of that emphasis on not just the hypno bit, but the being informed and the emphasis on the importance of your environment in terms of
Yeah.
your sensory experience of the birth space. And of course, nervous system regulation. This is all coming back to nervous system regulation at the end of the day. So that is hugely important in the context of what we're speaking about. But a few times in our workshops, the question has come up, well, how accessible is hypnobirthing? Because there might be phrases like trust your body, or, if we're
Mm.
thinking about visualizations, we might think, well, no, that's not for me. But you so wonderfully explained how it's much more than that and how things can be adapted and tweaked. And I love the idea of kind of like the visual board and, yeah, adapting your language. And I think that's amazing. I remember with both my births finding hypnobirthing absolutely invaluable, both births being very clinical, labor ward, augmented births, and needing those tools to cope with the sensory side of things, but also because I had a tool in my toolbox, that was absolutely what I needed. And without hypnobirthing, I think it would have been a very different experience. I have a question, if that's okay, if I'm allowed to start off. Sometimes in hypnobirthing, we talk about anchoring.
Mhm.
So, for example, there might be something called the shoulder anchor, where you're kind of, doing a tactile shoulder squeeze, which you sort of, well, you would explain this much better than I'm about to, but you sort of link that to a positive feeling. So,
Yeah.
I remember my instructor, I think, I mean, it was 9 years ago, but saying something along the lines of, think of a time when you felt really accomplished and you felt like you'd done something, maybe
Mm.
you'd run a race or something, or you'd submitted a project and you felt really happy, whatever it is. I mean, those are probably not great examples, but and then you would get a shoulder squeeze from whoever your partner was, and you could kind of anchor that feeling to the shoulder squeeze. But
Yeah.
obviously, for some of us, a shoulder squeeze might be just the most horrendous thing. So are there alternatives to that sort of anchor that you might suggest for other people to
Oh,
explore?
definitely. It
Yeah.
could be a word,
Okay.
actually. Yeah, or it could be a smell.
Mhm.
Yeah, there's definitely different ways of creating an anchor. The shoulder squeeze is a popular one, but you could use the word in a similar way. Like, let's say it's a word like oh my God, there's so many words in the world. What could it be? I don't know, like flower
Flower.
or whatever word kind of makes you feel safe or calm. Then when you are sort of maybe practicing relaxation or in using hypnosis, for example, then you could have your birth partner say that word to you
Yeah.
to help to anchor it in, and that can be that
Mhm.
can be really powerful. The same with a smell, like when you're practicing hypnosis or affirmations or breathing or relaxation, you could have a certain smell that you have around you, which could be like an aromatherapy oil, but it doesn't have to be, it could be something else, and then that can also become an anchor which
Yeah.
can help you sort of more easily switch into that state of relaxation because your brain connects relaxation to or calmness or groundedness or nervous system regulation to that smell or that word.
It's
So yeah, there's
amazing how that
definitely other
works.
ways.
Yeah, that's fantastic. In fact, um, Joe's shared that she used a sound anchor of the sound of waves on a beach and she still uses it at the dentist. And I think that's such an important point. These are skills for life, actually,
Yes,
for parenting in particular, and yeah, visiting the dentist and all sorts of things. So you'll never lose them. And Joe's also said,
definitely.
well, she says, thank you so much. This was amazing. Agreed. And so helpful for learning. 16 years ago, showing my age, I did something called natal hypnotherapy. Is that still a thing? And is it very different from hypnobirthing? Because it didn't involve any scripts to learn. Do you know anything about that?
I do know nasal hypnotherapy, but I know of it, but I'm not completely familiar with it. But yeah, I would be very interested in understanding how they do. So it's not necessarily hypnobirthing, it's another form of using hypnotherapy to prepare
Mm.
for birth.
Mm.
Yeah, and when I say scripts, really what I mean, and again, like this is like language, and probably should have checked myself. What I mean is really MP3s, so it's a recorded script for you to listen to as part of your birth preparation. There are scripts that can be read to you as well, but generally it's a recording.
Yeah, thank you. And we've got another question from Lisa.
Hi, Lisa.
Lisa, your dedication to our webinars this week has been noted. Thank you. I think
Go,
you've been on
Lisa.
every one, so we celebrate you, Lisa. Thank you. Um, he said, Liz, you mentioned that screaming and wailing is encouraged. In the African American community, screaming and wailing is the opposite. Okay, so what are your experiences to this in finding the opposite to be true, and how do you address this?
I wouldn't say that I mean that screaming and wailing is encouraged.
Mm.
What I'm trying to communicate to you is that you as an individual should do what feels right to you.
Yeah.
So often hypnobirthing is like perpetuated as this very kind of calm, very quiet, very serene, which it can be, and which a lot of people do like behave in that way. But if you want to be more vocal, if you want to be loud, then you very much can be. That's
Mm.
up to you. And I think this is something that's important as well, like thinking about like cultural preferences. Like we can incorporate that into hypnobirthing. It doesn't have to be like, oh, it must be like this. So it's not like you must scream and wail or you must
Yeah.
be quiet. It's like, how can you use these like the platter that I offered in terms of the pillars? How can you use those pillars in a way that feels like culturally appropriate to you, or for somebody else it might be how can they use it that's appropriate to their religion or their learning needs, or just who they are as an individual.
Yeah.
I hope that helps, Lisa. Thanks for asking the question.
Yeah. Thank you, Lisa. Yeah, I think hypnobirthing is something that is so individualized, isn't it? Different people are going to kind of engage with it and benefit from the tools in totally different ways. And
Yeah.
that's really what a lot of what your message in today feels like it's been about. It's kind of respecting that. Lisa says, yes, it did. Thank you. And I suppose I've got one, it's not really a question, but it's just a kind of reflection in terms of um how hard it is at the moment for people in terms of their hippocampus, their filing cabinet of, um, possibly negative beliefs about birth and what other people are saying and doing because of everything in the media about maternity care right now. I mean, we're bombarded with it all the time. And so I think hypnobirthing has a really important role to play in sort of helping people look at their beliefs and to, hopefully reframe their beliefs to something a bit more positive and supportive for their births and their individual circumstances.
Yeah, absolutely, Victoria. I think it is very challenging
Mm.
because, we're hearing so much in the media, particularly in the UK, but I know in other parts of the world as well, particularly about maternity services, which, can be very triggering
Yeah.
and scary for pregnant women, pregnant people to hear as they're preparing for birth. And I think that really one of the things that can really help with that is the education pillar of hypnobirthing. So really getting that understanding about how your body works and how important the mind body connection is and how that works as well. And then also understanding what your birth options and your birth choices are. We really encourage people who do hypnobirthing to research their chosen place of birth. So if they've decided to go to a hospital to give birth, have an understanding of what the kind of care is there and what the kind of policy is there. Not necessarily about getting other people's opinions, because obviously opinions can vary greatly and that can be triggering as well. But you can look at statistics coming out of the hospital. You can look at the you can get in touch with the MVP,
Yeah.
Maternity Voices Partnership, to again understand what kind of care is available there. And that can either help you feel confident in your decision, or it can make you think, actually, I'm going to look somewhere else, or I'm going to maybe look at a different environment to give birth in, maybe a birth center or home birth, etc. And again, it's not for us at the Calm Birth School, it's not about telling everyone to have a home birth or telling everyone to like have a birth center birth. It's definitely about finding the right place of birth for the individual.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for that, Liz. I think that's a really
Nice.
important point to sort of conclude on. So if no one else has any questions, we have a lovely comment from Lisa. These webinars are well needed. This week is so good, and I look forward to continued learning to improve and implementation. Thank you for setting this up. This is great. Thank you, Lisa. We think you're great too. So thank you so much. Right. Well, thank you, Liz. We're so grateful for your time and your dedication to accessibility in hypnobirthing. Your passion comes through the screen
Oh,
and the Zoom calls. So thank you for sharing everything you have with us today. And yes, thank you everyone for joining us. It will be on YouTube with all the others. So if you can think of somebody who you think, oh, they would love to watch this on replay, then do go and check out our YouTube channel at Neurodivergent Birth. And with that, we'll bid you goodbye. Please join us at 2 o'clock, though, in 1 hour to come back. And we'll be hosting our final session, which is with the wonderful Ruby. She's one of our ND birth practitioners, and she's talking all about race and neurodivergence in the birth space, which is a hugely important topic, and we can't wait to hear from her. Thank you.
bye.
Thank
Bye,
you. Bye bye. Bye
everybody.
bye.
Bye.